Evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, it being Tuesday, December 13th at 6:30. And I'm Linda Vacan, the Ward 5 Counselor and Chair of Committee. And with me, I have Counselor Jose Maldonado Velez, Vice Chair. I have Counselor Cocaine Givner and Counselor Israel Rivera. Counselor Jourdain is away on business, so he will not be able to attend tonight. Later in the meeting, we will be having joint hearings with the planning board, but I'm advised that they are in executive session, and it appears they might be delayed for estimating maybe up to a half an hour. So I would suggest that we would go out of order. And if I can just inquire in the gallery if we have people here on the agenda. Are you here for one of the agenda items?
We're observing your first item on the agenda, the battery storage. And I'm Julius Christoph from the Holyoke office.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that will be a joint hearing with the planning board, so we have to wait for them. Yeah.
So, if anything,
Sorry about that.
I could entertain a motion
There.
to take up 5 and 6 because I think they're outside.
Oh. Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
There's a Stephanie somebody. Oh, that's for, yeah, that 7, right?
yeah, we do. Well, let's do 5, 6, and then we do
could be.
2.
We'll see how it goes, right? Oh, wait, I see a Vivian.
Yes, this is Vivian with a special permit.
Oh, so that is item 4.
Okay. Yeah.
4 is 1 and 5 and 6
Or
is
the second
another.
one. I mean, we could do them consecutively, I guess.
Yeah, they're
All right. So they're already here, though.
here.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to do item 5 and 6, take them out of order as a package,
And
Second.
open the public hearing.
and open the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so item 5 and 6 are before us in the public hearing for a special permit application for Blossom Flower at 1 Cabot Street to operate a marijuana manufacturing establishment. And item 6 is a special permit application for Blossom Flower at 1 Cabot Street to operate a marijuana delivery business. Now, we took this up as 2 separate things because it came in as 2 separate applications for the respective businesses, but we did get response letters merging the responses for both. And so those we won't have to go through a duplication of that, okay? So have members of the committee had a chance to look this application over? I would just note that in terms of the letter and the responses from the planning department, the application was very complete. So I'll let you make your presentation and then ask for any public comment. If there's any outstanding items, you could let us know the status of those, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You need to push your button on the.
Yep,
piece
make
of
sure
your
the
thing.
green light is on and give us your name and address, please.
And just technical thing real quick before I start is I believe I have a little 5 slides, which I believe I can share through the Zoom link. Is that
Yeah.
right? I'll share screen? Okay, great. I am in here, but I think you guys have to allow me to share
I
screen.
think Jeffrey will do that. He's in the
Jeff's
control
probably
room.
He's always listening.
So hopefully momentarily you'll be able to do that.
Great.
Which name is it?
It's to share slides.
Yeah, and I'm just looking to see which name it is that I need to give that permission to.
Ezra Parzubak. Hi, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Great. Thank you.
all right, now I just have to give you co-host so that you can share your screen. All right, you should be all set.
Thank you. So I'm Ezra Parzabak of 30 Norwood Avenue in Northampton, Massachusetts. I'm the cannabis consultant for Blossom Flower and Damaris Aponte. And I will be giving a presentation, but for right now, we'll have Damaris introduce yourself and tell briefly about the project.
Thank you, Ezra. Hi, my name is Damaris Aponte. I live at 16 Mayor Drive here in Holyoke, Massachusetts. I'm a lifelong resident, and I'm excited to come up here right now and talk about Blossom Flowers delivery and manufacturing. You have the special permit in front of you. Feel free to ask me any questions. I worked very, very hard on that application. I don't pay lawyers and a lot of people a lot of money because I don't have it. So I'm glad for the feedback on it, and thank you so much. And Ezra's got a few slides, and thank you guys.
And welcome. And I met you a while ago, and you were talking about it.
Remember
and
when we first
now you're here.
started? Look at that. Now it's my time to have my opportunity. I'm very, very excited to be here in front of you guys. And as a lifelong resident of Holyoke, I even wore my shirt. You guys
There you
see
go.
it? Made in Holyoke, let you guys know. No, but definitely, thank you guys.
Yeah, so it's been my pleasure to work with Damaris. I've known Damaris for a couple years now. I like to say that she has CEO energy. She's never been the CEO of a company, but I am confident in saying that there's about 2,000 social equity applicants throughout the whole state. It is very, very rare to have a local resident in an area of disproportionate impact who is licensed in 3 separate license categories. Damaris holds a license for cultivation, which she's putting on hold. It's very expensive. She now holds a provisional, essentially a provisional license for manufacturing and delivery operator. And she owns 100% of her company. That is incredibly rare. And it's, as I was joking with her, no matter how long I've worked with her, I still don't get any equity off this thing. But no, it's
Internal conflicts.
yeah. Right.
I got a community to give back to, so.
Anyone who wants to work, who meets Damaris and sees what she's about, only wants to help, and that's why she owns 100% of her company. She has some like Henry Ford or some spirit in her that is driving forward. So I'll just give a brief overview of the technical aspects of this, and I am, as you mentioned, Councilor Vacan, going to assume that we are aware that manufacturing and delivery are part of the same entity. So
Yes, but we will be taking 2 separate votes because it's 2 separate applications.
correct, yeah.
Yes.
And city clerk said we did have to have 2 separate permits, so we went through that process. So if you have any questions
But-
for specific things.
But I think, and I'll just check with the committee, we're comfortable to hear about it all as a merged
Great.
presentation.
Yeah.
right?
Thank you. So Blossom Flower, for some reason, I am not able to move forward. Why? Bear with me. So Blossom Flower is one of the cannabis entities at 1 Cabot Street in Holyoke in Ward 1, which is where Damaris grew up.
Yes.
If you know the building, it's right there on the main drag on Cabot. Damaris's location is around the back of the building, and the slope of the parking lot goes down, and so she is on the ground floor, even though she's technically in a basement location. Her entire operation, both the delivery license, which includes dispatch and offices, and the manufacturing, which is just the most basic manufacturing of non-chemical, non-machined product, is around 2,000 square feet. She does have a shared sally port, like other entities in 1 Cabot Street. Captain Moriarty, who approves security plans, has been at the site and talked about multiple sharing. Damaris also has the benefit of Milltown Agriculture is an operating entity, and One Cabot is the site, and New England Protective Services is a security firm that's been operating right in the space that Damaris is renting for over a year now. So the security, entrances, exits, checking badges, checking IDs, and even deliveries to the shared Sallyport have been running smoothly for over a year. This is a non-public facing license category. Manufacturing and delivery are essentially a warehouse model, so the public will not be on site here for this business. There's no changes to the site itself, the exterior site, so any previous sites we've seen for parking, lighting, build out, etc., those are all the same. I will show a floor plan and a site in a couple slides. She has a very efficient small space. Her employees and Damaris will have shared bathrooms that are part of the One Cabot Street tenant model. And then as far as manufacturing products, the category of manufacturing is a very wide ranging category. You can do volatile chemicals and all kinds of things. Damaris is getting licensed as a manufacturer in order to do the most basic manufacturing. This is taking the plant material and either packaging it into individual packages that can have her branding. So that is under the manufacturing license, but there's no chemicals required, there's no machining required, and pre-rolls. So pre-rolls can be as simple as you purchase wholesale loose cannabis material, and you have a small machine or a team of people who roll these pre-rolls joints, as we're familiar with. So the products that are being manufactured are very, very low tech. Here is the site floor plan. So as you go around back of the building, in orange, you'll see the shared Sallyport. That is an example just to show the size of the Sallyport. So large vehicles can come in, and then Damaris's delivery vehicles will enter the Sallyport temporarily to have her team bring a product that's locked. They go through the security controlled public space there right into the Sallyport, just as Milltown has been using, and they load the vehicles, and the vehicles go to make a delivery, and they come back. When a vehicle is not being used, it can park in her allotted spaces in the parking lot. Additionally, all the vehicles can have cannabis in them and are compliant with the CCC regulations. Multiple cameras, 2 drivers per vehicle, a locked bin or box that is bolted to the vehicle itself. But at the end of the day, at the end of the shift, all cannabis products have to be stored back in her vault. If there's any vehicles do not have any cannabis off shift, and then those vehicles can actually go off site, so they can be stored at a delivery person's household or in a driveway as any typical delivery vehicle would be stored. You can see the red rectangle is her actual space. I have a close-up of that, so we'll get into the details there. But it's essentially 3 basic rooms. We have a room that's a vault, so this is secure storage, which is her inventory. We have a room that is for prepping and making those pre-rolls, packaging product. And then the third open space is just dispatch, offices, and then an IT room, I believe. I'll get a closer look in a couple slides. So let me just walk through the operations. Again, this is 100% owned and operated by Damaris Aponte, lifelong Holyoke resident. It just warms my heart saying that. This is very rare. She's only making simple products. She will start with 3 vehicles. All delivery vehicles for cannabis have to be completely unmarked, and the vehicles themselves have a maximum of $10,000 of product that they can hold in their vehicle. $10,000 worth of product can fit in a typical vehicle trunk. Sometimes delivery vehicles are a small hatchback. Think of a Honda hatchback. Damaris will have these smaller vans, delivery vans. That's what she's acquired for the site, but they don't have windows in the back. They're tiny little box vans, completely unmarked. That's what she'll be using. Damaris is also just her approach to this business and to her community mimics what the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, wants out of an operator, which is to have a positive impact. Damaris was just sharing with me that she's organizing a community dinner to feed people who are in need. It's completely separate from her positive impact. Her positive impact plan, compliant with the state, is in Holyoke, which is also great. Some companies are doing things out of the city. So hers is completely in the city. And she really intends to hire employees from Ward 1. These are
Ward 2.
two,
Ward
sorry.
1 and Ward 2, because that's.
Yeah, Ward 1 and 2. These are the flats. These are South Holyoke. These are the neighborhoods she grew up in. And these are the neighborhoods where she can walk around and knows the people who live in them and can say, give me your application. Come apply for a job. This is a truly local business. As far as these vehicles, traffic, parking, she's using few of the parking spots, and I'll have an image of the site next slide. But the number of cars that go by 1 Cabot Street is huge, 15,000. So her few ins and outs, her traffic from her delivery cars will not add much to that as a percentage, less than 1/5 of the percent of 1%. Damaris is also well connected to a OSHA consultant. I've actually, Damaris introduced me to her OSHA consultant, Manny Ramirez?
Emmanuel
Manny Westfall, who has done work for my other cannabis clients because he's well schooled in OSHA. So she'll be building a culture of safety and OSHA compliance within her tiny little business from the start. I really feel safe with Manny and Damaris working together on OSHA compliance, safety, and employee safeguarding. As far as odor and particulate, a company that produces huge amounts of cannabis, hundreds or thousands of pounds, they need mechanical machines that can produce particulate. This small operation, a very small business, anything that's ground will be hand ground. This keeps particulate to a minimum. And then any cannabis that comes into this manufacturing room does produce odor, but the room itself is separated from the other employee areas and will have its own filtration system within the room. So that keeps odor to a minimum. And then typical waste plan, similar to every company in the building, which is very little for a company like this. She's buying everything that she plans to use, so there's not a lot of waste coming out of it. But if anything falls on the floor, for example, if anything has to be quarantined or recalled by the CCC, goes through the standard operations of a locked quarantine separate container inside the vault, which then gets ground up and made into rendered unusable, is what the term is for the CCC. It's often ground with dirt or cannabis, coffee grounds, etc. And then that's disposed in the locked dumpster that's part of 1 Cabot. And then a quick view of the site here. This external accessory building is this same Sallyport here. The buildings are were built separate, so you can see that sort of open air, but they do have a hallway that attaches the buildings. So that's this area here. So her leased space on one cabin is right in this area, and these are her allotted spots. I believe because of her square footage, she only needs 3 or 4 spots for her allotment.
I'm getting 5 altogether. I'll have 5.
She will have 5 altogether. Here's a close-up, and last slide is just branding for Blossom Flower. So we'll leave it on this so you can just get a sense of here is where if you follow this dotted line, just to give you a sense of operations, product she purchases gets delivered and brought in into the manufacturing processing room. That's where she might create pre-rolls or package her own product. It then gets stored in the vault, and dispatch and offices or desks for workers are here. And then when there's orders, the product gets packaged up in the vault into specific orders and brought right back out the same pathway to her vehicle. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. It sounds great. I just have one quick follow-up question, then I'll open it up to committee members. And before I go into our questions, though, I do just want to check to make sure there's nobody on Zoom or anybody in the chambers that wants to speak for or against this special permit, just to check off all the boxes. I'm not seeing anybody. So just wanted to be sure that that was put out there.
You do have a hand raised on Zoom.
Oh, let's see. Why can I not? Oh, okay.
So if you could unshare so we can
Okay.
see them. Okay.
All right. Maybe I can see better with
All
my
right.
glasses.
First, you have Dwayne Osborne.
Okay, Dwayne, I'll recognize you for a comment.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Edward Osborne. I'm calling in support of the project, and I just wanted to let that be known and calling in support of Mayor. And today is my birthday. I just turned 62.
Oh, well, happy birthday, and thanks for
Thank
calling
you.
It
in.
was my birthday last Friday. Happy birthday.
Okay, and I'm not seeing another hand.
Are there any attendees?
And I'll recognize whoever else is waiting.
You have Emmanuel.
Hello, guys.
Hello?
Can you guys hear me? Hi,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor. If you can
Perfect.
just give us your name and address.
Yes, Emmanuel Westfall, 205 Main Street, Salem, New Hampshire. I'm calling in favor to Blossom Flower Damaris Pointe. I'm the owner of DE Safety Solutions, working with Ezra and Damaris. She has been very proactive in, seeking things to look out for the safety of not only the workers, but also to be in compliance. And she's kind of, brought us on to, help her with that. A lot of companies in the cannabis sector aren't thinking of OSHA and federal regulations. So for her and her team to think proactively about that and want to get ahead of it to protect her workers as well as her business is a big plus for us in the safety world. And so I definitely give my recommendation.
Well, thank you, and your feedback is welcomed, and we heard your name earlier in the presentation. So thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on the special permit?
You have Frank Daly.
Oh, Frank, you have the floor.
Good evening. Can you hear me all?
Yes.
Good evening. I just was Frank Daly, 109 Pennsylvania Ave, Springfield, Massachusetts, co-owner of Boston Bud Factory in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and a proud supporter of Blossom Flower and Damaris. I don't have to tell you all how active Damaris is in the Holyoke community and all that she does, so I won't bore you with that, but I can tell you that I've watched her from the start of this, and it's great to see other small players surviving this process. Not many of them make it through. So Damaris and Blossom Flower have all of our support and our love.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right,
Now
next you have Trey Williams.
Oh, okay, thank you, Jeffrey, I appreciate this. Trey, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trey Williams. I'm a co-owner of Stone's Throw Cannabis located in Boston, Massachusetts. My address is 1122 Harrison Ave in Roxbury, Mass. And I just wanted to support Damaris in this initiative and getting her special permit. I believe she deserves this more than anybody else. She's worked extremely hard, put in a lot of work, a lot of community support. And it's just been a mentor to myself in going through this entire cannabis process. So I'm in huge support of everything Damaris is doing.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next you have Cleon Byron.
Okay, Creon, you have the floor. Cleon.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. I just want to say I'm in support of Blossom Flower. I'm in support of Damaris. I've seen all the hard work she's been through. She's actually a part of my cohort 2, which has been doing great things. And she's definitely one of the leaders in Massachusetts. And I support her big time. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I think I've had,
We do have,
is there one more?
there are 4 more hands still raised.
Oh, okay.
Shalair Armstrong? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Hey, I just wanted to say I am also here in support of Damaris and Blossom Flower. I'm out of Boston, Massachusetts. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, next we have Stephen.
Stephen, if you can just tell us your name and address, please.
Hi, hello. My name is Stephen Barboza. I live at 285 Whipple Street in Fall River, Mass. And I'm calling in support of Damaris and Blossom Flower. She has been a huge inspiration to a lot of people here in the cannabis industry, and I look forward to seeing her succeed.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next we have Kizzy K.
Oh, now, see, I'm seeing them later.
Hello.
Kizzy, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kizzy Key. My address is 1601 Blue Hill Avenue in Boston, Mass. I am the owner of Gas Station Studios. I'm also a social quality participant. I am here supporting Boston Flowers and Damaris. She's been a very community activist for Holyoke. She has helped out. She's been a very good mentor, and I just want to say I support this project.
Okay, thank you.
And we have Ray Brown.
Hi, Ray Brown. You have the floor.
Hello, yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raymond Brown. I live at 62 Portland Street in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and I am in favor of Blossom Flower and Damaris Aponte moving forward. And I am a community advocate for cannabis in my area, and it's amazing what type of community advocacy that she displays where she is from. And Holyoke would be proud to have a woman like Damaris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Jeffrey.
Of course.
Okay, committee members, any questions that you have while I find my conditions list? You have the floor.
Who wants to go
Rivera?
first? I'll go first, I guess. I don't have any questions. I guess I'll just speak out in support of the project, right? As a Holyoke resident, as a city councilor, and as someone that has actually worked with Damaris on a variety of different events. She actually helps helped run the Dad's Giving that I recently organized with. And she's helping out the community dinner, like she mentioned. There's a variety of different projects that she's actually involved with, and it's actually cool to have someone that actually grew up in Holyoke to be a CEO and organizer of cannabis industry. I think that was the real intent for us when we actually wanted the business to come and to get the business legalized. And for me as a former cannabis dealer too. It's pretty cool to see it come to fruition legally for people that I can tangibly know. So yeah.
Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's the 100% for me. Like, we've had social equity applicants come before us before, and this is, I believe, the first person that is 100%. I am the owner. Like, there is no shade towards lawyers and other investors, but at the end of the day, this is what the social equity program was made for, to support and to have that 100% ownership. So just seeing that, I think this is also, we've been here about 10, 11 months. I think this is the most support any permit has gotten from the public. So that's also huge. Yeah, I'm excited. I've seen you on Facebook. I've seen you trying to raise, there's different ways to raise this money. And I think, there are other individuals, no shade, but like they want to open their business. They always go to those people that have that equity. You have stuck it through. You have made fundraisers, have talked to people, are always out there networking. This is how we want to get stuff done. So like you are the example of what we need more of in the city. So I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll say something too. I've only seen one other applicant that I felt personally strong about and was excited to see coming into Holyoke. So it's really nice to see this much support from your community and from communities outside of Holyoke. We don't see that a lot either. And primarily from people of color, which is another thing we don't see enough of. So the other business I really liked, I think it was a delivery business, and it was two people partnering up, and they had raised all the money. So it was a similar story, but they weren't from Holyoke. And this is really nice to see. So all the best. Thank you.
So everybody's good? All right. And I would just note that I would say I believe this is the first Ward 5 resident who's opening up a business. So congrats.
Thank you.
She's from Ward 1 though.
I live in Ward 5. My business is the best of all the world.
I know where she lives.
That's
why I said it.
Let me share. It's the best of all the worlds. I live in Ward 5.
Nice.
I grew up in Ward 1. I'm sort of located in Ward 2. And it all just comes in together to just support all the communities that I love, right? It's all just one together, which is amazing, and I'm very happy.
Great. So I just, as a matter of routine business, we have the conditions that we put on all of the permits, and you're probably aware of those, but I need to read them into the record. So one is that the owner of the building always pays the commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit, that the business retains a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs, that the hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or a retired member of another police department that now lives in the city of Holyoke, that there shall be no marijuana consumption allowed on site, that the hours of operation be set according to the city ordinances, that the applicant must abide by Massachusetts general laws and guidance from the Cannabis Control Commission, that the petitioner applicant shall conform with city and state health laws, rules, and regulations, including odor nuisance controls for the duration of the permit. And we've added in a number 8, just to remind people that if the council votes and approves the special permit, that it's a 2-year period for there to be substantial work completed. And so we've added it as a condition just to have it as a visible reminder. And that's why that is there. So are those acceptable to you as the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. And if you don't mind, I think it was in your paperwork, but do you mind just saying what the hours and days will be?
It's going to be Monday to Sunday. Right now, my paperwork, I got 8 to 8, but with the hours moving forward to 11, because I know to 11 is part of the ordinance, but right now 8 to 8.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I would like to entertain a motion to close both public hearings.
The motion to close both public hearings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And would somebody like to make a motion on the special permit?
So a motion to approve item 5, which is a special permit for the manufacturing establishment.
And 6, right?
We're gonna
You
do
can
it
do them
separate.
one at a time.
Okay.
Or
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then motion to approve item 6, which is a special permit for Blossom Flower to do a marijuana delivery business.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this is passed unanimously of those of us here. It will go to the city council at our next meeting, and I dare say it's not a controversial application. I can never prejudge the city council.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Have a good night.
So are we,
So the board members are here, and some must be on Zoom. So we will move to.
Microphone, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey? Oh, thank you. So we will be moving to our joint public hearing now that the board members are here. And I see some members on Zoom and some are in person. So if is everybody here who's
To do it.
coming? Okay.
So motion to open up the public hearing from item 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so item 1 is a public hearing, a joint hearing with the planning board that ordered that the city council add a section for battery storage facilities to the zoning ordinance section to be determined to reflect technology advancements and a future need for such installations. New facilities will be reviewed for section 10 major site plan review. So, and I'll let the planning board. Welcome, planning board.
Thank you. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on a zoning text change for an addition for battery storage facility to reflect technology advancements and needs. File number 2022-10.
so moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
By roll call vote, Rosanna?
Yes, ma'am.
Kate?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes. I take it we've lost Nathan?
We have lost Nathan. I do see Lauren on, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed him on Zoom. He's there.
Oh, excellent.
Let's just get him up.
Hello.
Hi, Nathan. Do you approve us opening up the meeting?
Yes, I was here, but I wasn't given the
Yeah.
panelist authority.
Yep, we're all good now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, so my understanding about this is that it will probably be a fairly long and detailed discussion over time because we're looking at developing technologies and developing plans for the capacity of the grid. And so my understanding is that we have some draft language that we can all begin to look at and start to have some initial discussions. It was my understanding that perhaps there would be a general overview, perhaps from somebody in planning tonight. I'm not sure.
Well, for what it's worth, I think our sense is also that this is going to be a long discussion, which can be better informed as we go along with more information. And I think we all have a lot of learning to do. The draft we're looking at, as I understand it, is actually from Holyoke Gas and Electric, where they produced this by taking a quick look at our current solar regulations and attempting to provide us with some guidelines by adapting them to battery technology. But it's not a planning board draft. And I think that at best, we can all take some lessons from what we have experienced with the solar field arrays. I personally think that it would probably be useful for us to perhaps talk to Holyoke Gas and Electric, if they can make people available, about the actual state of this technology. You know, the need is clear, and I am very grateful to them for starting this discussion. You know, we're going to want to have battery storage, but the technology may be, for all I know, in the process of changing, you know, what the installations will look like and what they'll need as the years go forward. You know, we don't have any expertise on yet, and I think we should probably think about it. And of course, we'll want to think about, we don't want to have what originally happened with solar fields, where we allowed for them in all districts without sufficient controls and regretted it and found ourselves playing catch up. And you know, I love the fact that this is an opportunity to start from the beginning and get it right. But beyond the, you know, my instant reaction to it, which was, you know, this is a great start, but we need to know more. And I think we definitely want to have some sort of special permit mechanism so that it can't go in on any empty lot in the city by right.
Right.
You know, we just need to know a lot more before we can really draft an ordinance. And does anyone else on the planning board have remarks they want to make at this point?
I think one thought I had was whether you want this kind of ordinance to not just regulate battery storage, but the source of the energy. In my opinion, I think that might be excessive, but because there's language about renewable energy or sustainable energy in the draft ordinance, I'm just, you know, wondering to what degree you want to regulate the source of the energy.
Well, that's,
I think we would have to talk to HG&E about that.
right. So just to let everybody know, I did reach out to Jim Lavelle, and he had sent me some background information relative to this. And so what I'll do is I'll share this to Jeffrey and ask him to put it out to everybody. And I've never seen the draft language that Mr. Chung is referring to. So maybe whatever language we have between us, we can all have it, and that way we'll kind of be on the same level, at least starting out. How's that sound?
Yeah, we can certainly get you the draft
that
that
sound-
HG&E sent us.
Sure. But beyond that, the general sense was just that we all know we need more energy, and there may be the need to store it closer to where it will need to be used than always being downtown. But then there was the further concern. I've gone down to see the ones downtown, and those things are massive. And I mean, my personal hope is that as these things develop, they get smaller like the computers did. But I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's my hope. And we do have some folks in the audience from the Elks that have interest in solar and what might come of any developments, you know, that we have in the city as we go forward and figure out size and siting and how the whole thing will roll out. So I think, yes.
I think one idea we had is that it might be better to have a subcommittee about this, but I don't know whether it's useful, because this is a lot. The draft that we got is like 9 pages long and all sorts of things that I think we need more information about. But I guess my question, and maybe Mimi has some idea about this, would it be good to have, say, to get HG&E to come in to talk to all of us about this and then break out a subcommittee?
I mean, it's hard for us to get people to split into other committees beyond the committees they're already on. If there was a strong need for it, if we were pressed for time, I would be thinking about that. But right now, I'd like to see us all just get the information and have time to look it over. And then, yes, I would like somebody from HG&E to come in and speak to us jointly. And then maybe from there, when we see how complex or big or difficult it looks, we could figure out a work group if we need to. Does that work?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. If we get the first round of information with everyone participating.
Yeah.
At that point, maybe we can narrow down the questions we have to ask, and if there's a whole lot of scientific information we need, maybe there'll be a few of us who collect that on behalf of the group, rather than forcing everyone to sit through it.
Right.
But
sounds good.
As a first cut, I do think it makes sense to gather some information as a group.
Okay. All right. So what is the pleasure of everyone to continue this to? For us, we have two set dates already, January 24th and February 24th, I think it is also. 28th.
Can I ask in that regard, I think we do have on our tentative schedule that we might be seeing you on January 10th about food truck zones, but we didn't know if you were going to need us back for that or not.
Okay. We won't.
Okay.
But jumping ahead.
Well, so far as I know, we don't right now have anything yet on our January 24th meeting, so that would seem like an opportunity where we could actually have the time to relax and listen to something.
Okay. Does that work for everybody?
If that works with the rest
So
of
we invite each Jenny in for that.
Yeah.
planning.
Okay.
Does that sound?
Yeah, that doesn't, I don't hear Sharon or Jeff vetoing it, so that sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Well, then, in that case, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
So, motion to continue the public hearing until January 24th at 6:30 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, all in favor? I'm sorry.
Did any of our guests want to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Were they here to speak to that?
My understanding was they just wanted to hear what was going on, and are you good with that? Yeah, I didn't understand you wanted to speak, Joe.
No, we were just observing.
Okay, that was what I thought, but assuming isn't a good thing. Thanks. Yeah, but this, is there anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak in the public hearing on this? Thank you for reminding me of that. Always a good thing to ask.
Okay. Well, in that case, I too would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to January 24th at 6:30.
Did I get the first
And
Yes.
I think
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
said it right.
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Just to be sure.
Kate,
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes.
And just for the record, Counselor Bacon, I don't think you actually finished taking a vote on your
Okay,
end.
that's what I was just checking in with my committee. We can just go all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Because we're all here, so we're good to go. Thank you. Okay, so I would entertain,
Motion to open the public hearing for item 3,
yes.
or continue the public hearing for item 3.
So for item 2,
Three.
we aren't
Oh,
joint
3.
with them, but they were interested to know what our status will be. If you want to just be official, we could open it, close it, because we don't need to continue with the planning board on item 2. And that was their question, coming in for January 10th.
You want to recap?
I mean, I can just communicate after, and we can go on to 3. All right, so let's go on to 3.
Motion to take item 3 and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item 3 is a public hearing that was continued, and it's ordered that City Council review and amend Section 5.4 of the Zoning Ordinance to allow for accessory dwelling units in the DR zone, in addition to amending Section 2 definitions and any other sections that may apply to allow this use in the DR zone. Accessory dwelling unit, ADU, is a smaller independent residential dwelling unit located on the same lot as a standalone. For example, detached single-family home. So, all in favor? Aye. So we're in our open public hearing.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to reopen the planning board's public hearing for zoning text change, amending section 5.4, multiple principal structures to allow accessory dwelling units, section 2 definitions, and relevant sections to allow the use in DR zones.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
By roll call vote, Rosanna?
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes. Okay, we're in session.
Okay, great. So we've had a couple of public hearings and we've had some discussion on this, and we all, I believe, received the 26-page document relative to examples and sample ordinances in a prior public hearing. Would that be accurate?
Well, I don't know.
I believe Jeffrey sent them out as an attachment in the past, but I just want to be sure that they are in the public record in the public hearing, so that as we go forward, we'll be able to consider them. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, it'll be information we can't take in if we close the hearing at some point. So I just want to make sure we don't close too early and then people don't have certain documents.
If this was a document that was sent to the planning board as well, I think I missed the first meeting about this, so I don't think I have ever got the document, or, yeah, I'm not sure, yeah.
So Jeffrey, if you know which document I'm referring to, it was case studies and samples of ordinances from about 5 different communities.
I'm not recalling offhand, but it's probably something I'll find quickly once I actually look for it.
Okay, so I guess to err on the side of, I'm sorry? It is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good. Once is enough. I'm looking to find, I had copied out, this, we've been kind of opening up these hearings over time, and so things do tend to get buried a little bit. But just to err on the side of caution, I guess I would like to ask Jeffrey, or I will find mine and make sure that everybody on the planning board and the committee has it. Because to me, it was the most informative document that went into details about how it was working in various types of communities.
I just found it.
Hang on.
I have September 29th on my file. I don't know what date it got sent out, but that's when I saved it.
Let me scroll back.
It's a link that was sent out by the HUD user.
Oh, yes, yes. I have 9/27 date on mine. And it came from Jeffrey, but he did, yes, send it as a link. It came to me as a BCC, so I'm not sure exactly who received it. I don't know about the planning board.
Counselor, was that the document that I forwarded some weeks ago? It was the HUD document?
Yes, it was a HUD ADU link.
Right.
I'm not
And
sure where it,
it included several case studies from around the country. So that's the document you're looking for.
yes, and I just forwarded the link to Mimi.
Okay.
And sorry for the delay, but I don't think I got an email. I'm searching through my email files, and for whatever reason, unless I missed it, it's in my inbox. Not sure I got it. And I mean, anyways,
So the title of it is HUD caps, ADU caps, links lowercase,
Nathan, I just emailed it to you.
if you're doing a search.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if planning board folks don't have it, we'll just be sure everybody has it tonight.
I think in fact we did all have it, but Jeff and Kate took lead on this project for us, and they're the most familiar with all of the details.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, does do the key point people feel that your board and this committee has enough information that's been officially entered into the record so that we could move forward with trying to make some recommendations and decisions, or is there more information that we need? The most robust information I found was in this particular case study. But if there's other information, I'd like to receive it in the public hearing, for consideration.
Well, I will ask both Jeff and Kate about this, but I know we did work through an actual proposed draft, and, to the best of my knowledge, I think we were fairly comfortable that we had everything we needed for this stage of the project. But am I wrong?
Yeah.
We provided a copy to the law department, and they came back with some red line amendments.
Yeah, I think we're comfortable with them.
But as I recall, those were clarifying rather than substantive.
Correct.
I don't think we have anything relative to a draft from the law department. A redlined? So maybe that could be sent over to ordinance?
Yeah, I should hope so.
Yeah, I don't recall receiving that.
I mean, let me just make sure I'm not missing it. Jeffrey, I'm sorry?
I don't recall receiving something from the law department on this.
Okay, because I didn't see anything, but sometimes things stick and I miss them.
Sorry, I was under the impression that you all got this, so.
Yeah, I think we all were, and obviously we just need to pull this out of wherever it got stuck in the process and get it to you.
Okay.
If anyone has it just sitting on their computer, we can presumably forward it now.
But what, the
I think
amendments?
this came in initially.
The amended version from the law department?
So normally the law department wouldn't be drafting legal language until the committee asks.
No, they
them
really
to?
weren't drafting legal language, but they were just looking at it so that we could then look at it as a draft.
Okay.
It wasn't a legal opinion necessarily.
Yeah, no, we just asked them for comments. We did not ask for legal form.
Okay, so it would be helpful if we could just have that. You could send it over to Jeff and he can get it to us.
Will do.
Thank you. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's essentially what we had talked about last time. We had a copy for you before.
We
and
have an
talked about it.
original
We had
draft
made,
that you had
made
given
some
us.
changes to that draft based on both the discussion we had with you and comments we got from the law department, from Jane Mantaleski, who's the new person in the law department who is our primary contact. So, Sharon, we can hear you.
Oh.
I think she's trying to figure out if she can.
Word document. I can screen share the document if I get permission.
Oh, okay.
Well, and Jane has her hand up.
Jane.
Oh,
For some reason, she is an attendee rather than a participant, but if we can give her permission to speak.
Jeff will upgrade her attendance status.
She's in now.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, Jane, well, Mimi or I'll recognize you.
Yes, I think we both recognize you.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting any of the counselors there yet, sitting on the ordinance committee, but I'm Jane Mantaleski. I'm a new associate city solicitor with the city of Holyoke. And yes, so I had received, it's nice to meet you guys too. I had received a draft for a better term of a potential revision to the zoning ordinance for ADUs. So I did take a quick look, just really, I didn't make anything sort of substantive changes, just more grammatical and just reference language as to the different cross sections of the ordinance. But that was pretty much all that I had done. I am more than happy to share it with, I can send it to Jeffrey if he would like me to, or if Sharon would like to share her screen, then I can talk to that as well if you would like me to.
Well, it would be great if you would send the document over to Jeffrey so he can share it with us, but it would also be fine to put it up on the screen so we understand the content. Now, and I just want to recap a little because we've talked about different kinds of these AUDs. We've talked about connected to the main building. We've talked about separate. And so there are different options within the language that as we go forward, we can take and use and modify. And we also have the sample ordinances that we received in public hearing from the other communities that we also might want to use to inform further discussions about which way we're going to go in the first place and then maybe further down the road. But I want to be able to keep that discussion open for committee to then request of legal what form we would want it in. But this is helpful for discussion.
I can also talk to some of the questions that came up in the last hearing.
That would be great.
Because Sharon did a nice job of keeping track of what all the questions were that came up from the ordinance committee. And so I'm not going to address them each in order, but I think in general they grouped into a couple different themes. There were a lot of questions about the density and how much of the lot could be taken up. And I think the important point here is that this, because we're proposing this only for DR, there's nothing about this ADU proposal that would be any different than what is currently allowable in DR. So other than that, it could be 2 buildings rather than 1 building. So anything that would be allowable in terms of the amount of the lot taken up, how close it could be to the edges of the lot is all the same as if somebody decided they were going to expand their house or build a new house on a lot. So it is not, it's allowing individuals to make their lot more dense, but not any differently than it would allow them to do if they tore down their house and started over with 1 house. It's simply that it's 2 houses. So if the concern is this is going to overwhelm lots, it's not going to allow people to do anything in terms of bulk that they weren't going to be allowed to do anyway, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does, because that way I can see how it's being perceived as a very simple thing and not a complex zoning change.
Yeah, so that, to speak to it, and I know that some of the questions are around, well, like how close to the lot line could you get? And again, in DR, there's a relatively, you have to look block by block because it is about the averages of the properties that it's near. And so this isn't going to change how that would be figured out, but that remains a thing that, needs to get figured out on a case-by-case basis within DR. And Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's something that would be up to the building commissioner to figure out with each case that comes before them. If somebody was planning to build an ADU, you would look at that specific lot and that block and what could be built there.
Yeah, and I think, oh, okay. So maybe if you could go through the language, it's a little hard for me to talk about the context of the language without seeing it. It's just.
Okay, but just to these broad questions,
Yeah.
so you can think about that. Another question that came up is what about utilities? And just to point out that doesn't need to be put into the ordinance. That's all building code. So other things that we're talking about, other kinds of buildings, that doesn't need to be dealt with in ordinance. It's always building code. So we're not hoping, we would not be adding that to this proposal because that's not in fact what the ordinance deals with.
Okay.
And one other big question that came up was who would grant the permits for this? And our proposal is that the planning board would do this because the planning board already gives permits for multiple primary structures for business uses. So it seems to make sense that if we're now creating an opportunity to do multiple primary structures for residential, it's a topic we're already dealing with. So our proposal is that it be the planning board, but certainly the ordinance committee and the city council could decide otherwise. They could put the special permit.
And you're seeing it as a special permit through the planning board?
Yeah.
So it sounded, and I might have just misunderstood you, that it was sounding like it would be up to the building commissioner.
The very specifics about, what's the permissible, how close can you get to the edge of the lot on this DR parcel, because that is figured out based on the density of that block. Yes, I think, and Jeff, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the building commissioner figuring out the density. Or
Correct.
perhaps it's building and planning together, but
Yeah. We would work in concert.
But there's not a minimum set for the DR zone because it's very dependent on what's going on each block.
Gotcha. And so my other question, because this comes up a lot for this committee, is impacts on parking if we're adding these units. And is that contemplated in the ordinance at all?
We didn't put anything additional about parking into the ordinance. I think in general, it's not that it couldn't be done, but I don't think we feel that is necessary. This is a DR zone. A lot of houses in this zone don't have off-street parking, and it is not really the character of that neighborhood necessarily to have off-street parking, and these are not big parking developments. These are not big housing developments. This is like an additional unit. My personal feeling is it would be counterproductive to put in minimum parking requirements here. I think we should be moving away from that and dealing with parking in other ways.
Well, I do hear what you're saying, but we do have it coming up to us a lot, whether people have to park on the street or there's accessibility for people with handicaps. So, but anyway, that's something that we can think about further as we're contemplating the language. But
there's this whole parking study being done around downtown, and
with the parking lots.
My personal feeling is that it's better to leave those questions of downtown parking to that larger study rather than try to insert it piecemeal into different parts of the ordinance.
Okay.
And so I would recommend against putting that into the ADU ordinance. But.
All right, well, fair enough. So, and in the language as it's being thought about now, are we talking about attached and independent? Thanks, Jeffrey. Units? So it's in here as both?
It's a dwelling or in a detached structure located. So it's
Okay.
attached to a single family dwelling or in a detached structure.
Okay.
Is a definition.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay. Well, I'm getting the sense
So
from
I guess I have a question real quick. So,
Council Rivera.
I don't know. I got a little lost real quick. So the 80. So you said with the parking, it's downtown because it's downtown residential. That's okay. If the person has the space, but because the density within the community doesn't permit it, then they'll not be able to do it if the building commissioner says no, right? So like I say they have a large enough lot space in the back of their home or their property space, but because the density of the community permits it, wouldn't permit it, then that would be the final say would be on the building commissioner.
Doesn't it have to do with the size of the land parcel?
Well, it sounded like it kind of sounds like it has to do with the density too of population within that community.
Things like the setback, it's things like the setback that are ruled by, that take account of what's allowable. You know, the minimum setbacks are what you look at the averages for.
Okay.
Is there something more that should be said about that? Jeff, can
But
you
I think if
jump
I
in?
understood the question correctly, maybe we can clarify that it's not density of population, it's density of building.
Okay. Okay. Because it sounded like it was density of like demographics of population.
Yeah, no, that
So it's
is
density of,
just,
like, building
I can see
space.
how it would sound that way, but that's not what this does.
So it's like building space, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Nah, don't worry about it.
May I bring up something?
Sure.
Please.
Yes, so it is my understanding the current zoning ordinance as it is, it allows duplexes and I think triplexes up by right already as it is. So I guess, and I think after a fourplex or beyond, it requires a major site plan review, if that's my understanding is correct. So I think one thing I guess that I'm wondering, I'm kind of curious about is, if somebody just wants to add an ADU that's attached to the existing building, you know, so turn it into a duplex from a single family house, whether that would even require a special permit. And to what Councilor Israel said, so the current ordinance as it is for DR, it allows for duplexes as long as it's within the dimensional use regulations. I don't think it really considers like population density. It just has to fit within the required dimensions in terms of setbacks and minimum open space and other requirements.
Oh, Councilor Givner.
I guess I was trying to figure out how to ask that question because I had sort of the same question, but it sounds to me like if you have a three-family on a lot and the max allowance is three-family for that lot, you would not be able to build an ADU there because you've already met the maximum requirements for that lot. However, if you have a two-family on and three-family is the max, and you have the space for it, you would be able to get the permit for that ADU because you can't add more than is allowed, but if you don't have the max allowable, you can add if you have the space. Does that sound?
So if you have, using that example, I'm sorry. So if you have like a three-family home and you have the space to build a separate ADU, you would not be able to because
if it's not zoned for four-family,
right? Because it'd
you
be
can't.
four, right? Because DR is only.
But if it is zoned for four-family and you only have a three-family and you have the space, then you would possibly get the special permit.
So those are just things we can make sure we clarify.
And then
Yeah.
the piece for the parking.
Just bear in mind that this is for, this is in instances where there's an existing single-family dwelling.
Only for a single family.
Correct.
Okay.
As it says in the
Okay.
definition, it says,
Yeah.
self-contained dwelling unit attached to a single-family dwelling or detached structure on the
Okay.
same primary, as the same primary dwelling.
Okay. Okay. So I think,
And part of what I think, every time we get into this, I get caught up on certain things, but part of what's different here is that in this zone, you're allowed in this zone to have a two-family house, but you're not allowed to have two structures.
okay.
Right? So this ADU would be allowing you to have two structures. And I know it's a little confusing because we've said it could be attached. But the fact is right now, even though a two-family dwelling is allowed in DR, you aren't allowed to have two separate buildings for
Okay.
those two dwellings, and this would allow you to do that.
Okay.
So
So
just
what
one-
about, oh, go ahead.
So just to clarify, the example I used is totally wrong. Because it's not a single family with this definition. And if we wanted it to fit a different definition, we would have to morph it into something
Right,
else.
and it was something that Jeff and I talked about when we were writing this up, is could you put an ADU behind a multifamily building, and we didn't write it that way. It's not that you couldn't, it could be changed to be written that way, but we thought that that wasn't the intent here, and so that's not how we wrote it.
And the reason it says attached single, because it can't be like sold separately.
Right.
You can't divide it. So that's why it's attached, but it's really not attached. It's just like a one big deal.
Yeah.
You can't like sell it separately.
Yeah. And so just to clarify, because it could be attached, and I think I used the wording of an in-law apartment, which currently isn't allowed either, right? So you could sort of look at the attached one maybe in those terms a little bit?
Well, arguably in a DR, an in-law apartment would be allowed because multifamily situations are allowed.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yes.
Okay. So the difference with an attached AUD and an in-law apartment would be what? The
I
access?
mean, it all comes down to the structure. It's the additional unit in the additional building.
Oh, okay. Whether it's attached or not.
Right. So like if you build like if you're in DR zone and you want to build another room to your house, it's an additional structure, but it's another room attached to your single family home. But if you want to take that room and turn it into a separate apartment, now it becomes an ADU.
It becomes
Because
a
even though it's
second
attached to
building.
your house, right, it becomes a second address. Right?
And right now you couldn't do that.
You technically can in DR. Because it's
Well,
a multifamily,
also,
right?
just again, to clarify,
I don't know.
It's,
Right.
you also, it wouldn't just be, you could add a separate room. This is designed so that it's an entire dwelling unit.
Yeah, a
It
whole
has to
nother
have its own sanitary facilities, it has to have its own cooking.
Entrance, egress, yeah.
So
So it's
yes, it can be attached, but it's not like you can just add on a room or two.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, I think the language about attached is in there because ADUs come before us generally as being a separate building, but, you know, if you put it so that they butted up against each other, that wouldn't make it ineligible for this.
Okay.
You know?
Well, and the definition thing here, they have it attics and basements as ADUs too. And the form that, the link thing that I was looking
Oh,
for.
the case study?
Yeah.
So my
it's defined, at least.
assumption is, and again, I could be corrected if I'm wrong, is that that would be permissible right now in DR because it's not it would already be permissible because it's not a separate structure. You're just taking part of the existing structure and making it into a different unit. I think that would already be allowable
Without changing the
without
structure at all.
changing the ordinance.
So then,
Or the structure.
I have two questions on. if you're not changing, if you take that example, you don't change the structure, is it still considered a one-family? Or is it now a two-family? And in that case, if it is a two-family, even though it's in one structure, you would still not be able to add the ADU as a separate structure?
In the backyard.
In the backyard, because now you've got a two-family instead of a one-family to add it to, according to this language?
Yeah, I think you would have to do one or the other.
Yeah, if you have a duplex.
Okay.
I think.
Is there some reason why we don't, why we only want this in downtown residential? Because it seems like the places where they would have room for it would be in other areas.
Well, the reason to start with DR is because DR is a zoning type that is designed to allow for more density, because the downtown core of the city is the part of the city that is historically more dense. And so this this ordinance is designed for DR because that seems like the zone that is most flexible at this point to allow it. It already allows this for non-residential buildings in a way that other zones don't. Or it's harder in other zones. And so it makes sense as the place to start, but that said, I mean, it is not off the table that in future that ADUs could be extended to other districts in town, but the way the DR zoning is written makes it easier to start there because multiple principal structures are already allowed for non-residential buildings.
Right, and then when you get into the other zoning, then you're talking about accessory structures, and it gets more complicated, right?
Yeah, and it's not that it couldn't be done, but
Right, but
it's an easy place to start and make sure that we're doing it right, and then extend it later.
All right.
Yeah, I think another way of putting this is, we are a city with multiple kinds of districts and living experiences available. DR is already intended to be an urban kind of environment. It's more like, as it were, New York City. The rural areas of Ward 5 are more like the hill towns.
Yeah.
And the idea here is to take the characteristics, the desirable characteristics of the neighborhoods that already exist and attempt to amplify them, as opposed to making the whole city more one size fits all.
Right.
And, as everybody says, obviously, if experience teaches us that this is a good thing that should be expanded everywhere, we could think about that in the future. But, I think we thought of this as making DR more like itself, more like what you would get in an urban center. And that made it an appropriate place to start.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is attractive about it is it gives people some alternate living options, and it also gives some people some income options. So it seems like it's kind of a win-win in those ways. But I just want to ask a question about process a little bit. I'm not sure where the committee or the council will come down on the whole special permit thing. But as I'm hearing you talk about it in the context of independent structures and collaborating with the building department, it seems to me that the building department would give you the feedback relative to the density questions as you were looking at a special permit if it was over there, versus if it was with council, then it would be the building department and planning giving opinion to the council. Is that a fair understanding of how it would flow?
Yeah, my personal opinion is it'll just be easier for the planning department to deal with this because it's already
doing
within
it
the
for the
bailiwick of what we're doing.
Business structures, yeah. Okay. Councilor Givner.
So, just before we move on.
Yep.
We've talked a lot in other meetings around in the council about the, property taxes going up and such. And so when I think of ADUs, I think of like in-law apartments in people's backyards, and I don't think of already populated urban areas. So I'm just a little I'm not caught off guard by this because I see what we're working on and why, but I just wonder why we wouldn't want this kind of income opportunity, if you will, or different kind of living arrangement opportunity in the neighborhoods that do have the space for it.
Right.
You know, because I really see it as like, I live in this big house, or my mom lives in this big house by herself, and she wants me to move back from Seattle. I'm going to move in, or I'm going to move into the pool house, or whatever. You know, it allows people to stay together or continue it in the same space. So I guess when I looked at ADUs originally and thought of this proposal, I was thinking more along those lines, because I think if you have three-family building on a three-family lot, and the house takes up most of the lot, you know, there's not going to be space for it. There's not a whole lot of single-family homes downtown.
Yeah. And for me, I kind of agree. Now, I hear a lot of what's being said with regards to like the DR and the intention behind the DR. Like, I agree with that. But I think for me, just to concentrate a lot of this in that area where there's already demographically a lot of concentrated population, I don't know if we would be doing a service for the people that are going to be living there in general, because just like we're already having issues with concentration people everywhere in the downtown district already as it is. Not to say that it's not a good thing. That it's a bad thing to have new people moving in. I want new people moving in 110%, and I wouldn't be against it. It's just to be able to stretch it out to different parts of the city where they actually have the space to build an extra house, or if they want to entertain that and they have the money to do it, to build a small ADA unit on the side. I don't see why it should only be relegated or just to that one section of the city. But if that's the approach we want to take just to start off, I could see that too as well. But for me overall, it's like, I think where I live, it might be zoned R1 because it's Ward 3 and it's only single family homes where I'm at. But if I wanted to remodel my attic and rent it out, I might not be able to do that because it's R1. But if the ADU situation would be able to be applied in the R1 district, I'd be able to do it.
Right, and
You know what I'm
just
saying?
tagging off of what you're saying a little bit, that's when I sort of piped up with the in-law apartment thing. Because in the past, we had somebody who wanted to build a house and they wanted to have an in-law apartment. And that was in RA, and they couldn't do it. Because you can't do it. Which I always thought was a little bit weird, because in a lot of towns, you could have an in-law apartment. So, but it is how the zoning is, and I hear your point that it would be more complicated to change it because it involves a lot of changing, whereas this doesn't appear to. So I'm thinking it's sort of like a pilot project, see how it goes, and
I think that is how we're feeling about it. I mean, the planning board is not opposed to the idea of ADUs in other parts of the city. It just seems simplest to start here. If the feeling of the ordinance committee was that it would make more sense to include other areas, other zones, we're not opposed to that, but that seems like a heavier lift right now.
Mm-hmm.
And more likely to get bogged down, whereas if it can get approved here and now for DR, it might be easier to, and it goes well, it might be easier to build on that success than to try to push through more.
That makes sense.
But that's, that's more about approach.
Mm-hmm. Counselor Givner?
Thank you,
Okay,
Madam
so
Chair.
Nathan?
Oh.
Nathan's waiting.
Oh, sorry.
I know Jeff had his hand up a while back, but whoever.
He put it down.
Okay. Well, if I may speak, I think a couple things to think about. So there has been anecdotes where, because they were allowed to build an ADU, and an aging mother or father built a smaller ADU, moved into it, and sold their main home to their adult children. And it was a very positive way to keep the family intact and help them save money. That's a very positive anecdote. And I think one thing, and this is the part I'm also kind of confused as I think of ADU, but one thing we want to really maybe clarify is in this current existing ordinance, what types of multifamily units are allowed by right already in DR, are attached duplexes and triplexes. And I understand I don't think they have to be identical in size or shape. Are they already allowed? That's my understanding. So now if you want to introduce an ADU ordinance, how do you want that to be changed? Would you allow separate detached duplexes, or following the spirit of the existing DR ordinance, would you even allow detached separate triplexes? That's one question. The other thing is some municipalities have approached this issue by updating the ordinance. They don't even use the term ADU anymore. They basically just call these multifamily that could be either detached or attached. So that's one possible, I mean, I don't want to cause more confusion into the discussion, but just not even calling something ADU or not, but just simply, saying attached or detached multifamily are allowed by right on this district. That is one approach I've seen some municipalities do. So just wanted to bring these up. Thank you.
Well, see, now Jeff has his hand back up, so I want to acknowledge him before he vanishes again.
Okay, so thank you. Just to reiterate though, I mean, this ordinance was originally created as a means to try to get a second structure onto a existing single-family lot. Currently, there'd be only, you could do multi-family scenarios or in-law apartments that keep getting brought up in, R2s, RM40s, RM60s, or any of the other, so most of the business zones that also allow for residential also allow for additional units. But with the exception of R1, R1A, and RA, that's where those would be the only other three zones really that you'd be targeting, and I think in addition to IG as well. But regardless, as far as residential is concerned, I mean, you can already do second units in a myriad of other zones. It's primarily about the additional structure. And then also, as much as, we can talk about aging in place and I respect that, but eventually, who's actually living in that structure, or the primary or the secondary, might be of concern for, there's no guarantee it's going to be the typical in-law apartment or a family structure that we would all like to see there. So just other things to consider. But I mean, primarily this is about the second structure. That's primarily what this is about.
Okay. Councilor Givner.
Thanks. I just had a question for Jeff. What's the percentage of single-family homes in the downtown residential area?
I would have I mean, that would be something we'd have to do a query against the assessor records perhaps, and that would probably be a little, that would be that's nothing I can generate right now or offer you right now.
Okay. I just wonder, who are we doing this for?
But as a general sense, is there the general sense that there's enough for it to be a good thing to try and see how it goes for the additional structures? There's enough.
This came to us because One Holyoke was hoping to put in an ADU, and they did have a lot that was going to, that had this space and they had the structure for it. So, yeah, can we give you a percentage? No, but there certainly are
opportunities.
There certainly are lots where this could work.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
So does committee feel that we're good to close the public hearing at this point? And just to be sure, is there anybody from the public on Zoom or anywhere that wishes to speak on this? Because the one time I don't ask, somebody will be there. Not seeing any, not hearing any. I think we're good to go if committee feels like you have adequate information. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to close out the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Does planning have to close it out too, or no?
Well, if they want to.
Oh, they don't have to.
Right.
My bad.
They can, but they don't have to.
Okay. Well, so planning board, are we set? Does anyone feel there's more information that we need before we take up deliberations on this? Hearing none, I too would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
While they're doing that, I'd like to entertain a motion to take up.
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
and
Nathan?
open public
Yes.
hearing, right?
Kate?
Yes.
Well, I'll just wait till they finish.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we will take this up and we will get a recommendation to you. And thank you very
Okay,
much.
yes, yeah, just as a matter of process, we will now wait until we get a recommendation back and then take it up after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, planning board.
Excuse me one second. How will the 21 days work with the holidays and whatnot in our next meeting? I just wanted to.
Oh.
Well,
good point.
Business? Is it 21
It
business
won't.
days?
Right. So that's,
Motion to reconsider closing the public hearing.
So moved.
we can stay closed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Mimi.
Yes.
A motion's been reconsidered.
Okay.
Can I just
Motion
clarify-
to continue this public hearing to a date certain.
I think Kate is making a comment, I think.
Yeah, can I just clarify, Mimi, if we keep it open till our next meeting, we can then close it and vote on it?
That is my feeling, yes. The point is not to hold it open for substantive reasons.
But
The point is
simply
to
for-
make sure that that 21 days doesn't expire.
So our next meeting being on January 10th, I move that we continue our public hearing to January 10th at 5:30.
Sounds good to me. Do I hear a second?
One clarification. Should it be 5:30 or 6:30? Is it a joint hearing?
No,
Not
we're
joint,
not.
because the
We're
ordinance
closed.
committee just closed there.
Oh, okay. Got it. Sorry.
No, 5:30 works for us.
Right. I think, yeah, I second that motion. I think Kate made it. I second.
Thanks. All in favor?
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Mimi.
Yes. And Jeff, thank you. You are a lifesaver.
Good catch. Okay, Merry Christmas. Goodbye.
Merry Christmas, thank you all.
Merry Christmas. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
So to your point,
So
Go to
motion
4,
to
you know.
open up the public hearing for item 4.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. So we're now in the public hearing for a special permit application for Small Wonders LLC at 109 Lyman Street for a marijuana manufacturing establishment. I saw Vivian on here earlier. Oh, I see Vivian on here now. Okay, so we have your application before us, and we did get recent updates as recently as today for the committee. So what I'd like to do is give you the floor to go over any of the open items that maybe committee members didn't have time to look at between work and here. So if you would like to give us an overview and the update, that would be great.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Steve. He is our architect that we have been working with. He is also on camera. I have a series of slides. If I have screen sharing capability, am I allowed to share the screen?
Sure. Jeff, can you give Vivian sharing?
You should be all set.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so with that, everybody should see my screen, 109 Lyman Street. I'm going to quickly go through these since everyone's had a chance to hopefully see them.
We're not-
We are proposing to
can't see
operate
your
a
screen.
Tier 1 indoor cultivation.
We can't see your screen
We're
yet,
not
sorry.
seeing your screen yet.
I'm sorry.
It shows that you're,
It shows on your screen, but not over here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are you hitting alarms?
All right, I'll bring it over this way.
Did you hit the
Can you see it now?
If I did it accidentally. Oh, I didn't realize, I'm sorry.
It's underneath.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
There's something under the table. If I did not know I did it. Sorry.
All right. Just to give folks a quick background, several years ago when we were looking to, possibly get into this venture in the New England area, we had done some research and actually seen, some history of Holyoke, and that's kind of how we found Holyoke and ultimately purchased the property here that you can see, 109 Lyman. It is a cultivation-only facility, so we are not making other products. We are not doing distribution, anything pharmaceutical related. So strictly a grow facility. Our hours of operation, you can see here, are 7 a.m., proposed to be 7 to 7. We expect it to be a relatively small operation. As already mentioned, zero tolerance for use on site. And again, as mentioned earlier, strictly just a straight grow facility. One thing I did want to also state is, while I have not met the previous lady with the other application earlier on lines 5 and 6, I think it was, it is myself and my son, Jacob and I, and it is strictly, a small family. We are not a large corporation. We are none of that. I have recently retired from the United States military as a colonel, having served 31 years and 3 months. So I'm looking to, get into.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And so when we talk about community support, we've partnered with the American Legion there in town. Again, I can show these slides and I'll just quickly pull on some highlights. But one thing that you'll see over and over again is trying to maximize energy efficiency, doing things both from a cost-effective perspective as well as an energy utilization and a minimal carbon footprint perspective. But making sure that we are in complete compliance with all local, state, and the Massachusetts CCC various requirements. I know odor is always a strong concern, and so we will take all the necessary measures to ensure that there are the odors, if you will, are contained through redundant carbon filtration throughout the facility, incorporating negative air pressure, and incorporating the various rooms, as you can see, and I'll have some drawings to show as well. This is, again, one of the systems, again, contingent on supply chain, contingent on availability, but the point is to show that, we've put a lot of details. We've worked with quite a number of companies to get us to where we are today. As far as CO2 measures, again, without getting into the details, we'll make sure that everything is compliant from a safety and a regulatory perspective. We are connected. We've received initial guidance and approval from the Holyoke Police Department. That was as part of the packet from both a CO2 perspective as well as from a security and safety of the employee and the general area perspective. Again, I already mentioned security, obviously closed caption TV, things will be disposed of properly, both inside and as through an appropriate contracted vendor for removal off-site. We do have an enclosed sally port, so we would have anti-rod bollards, again, as an extra precautionary measure. I've already mentioned the security measures have been submitted and approved by the Chief of Police. We will comply with all prevention and diversion to minors through both signage as well as print, both in and around the facility and on any packaging. From a traffic and deliveries perspective, because it is a grow facility, there's minimal deliveries once the location is up and operational. You're talking minimal supplies, packaging, labeling. So when a delivery comes, it's going to last a while. So we do not expect anything to, be a distraction or a traffic deterrence there at that intersection. And for most folks, that was the intersection that was basically redone right there just north of the railroad tracks as you head into town. With respect to site adequacy and improvements, obviously we'll be working with a licensed professional engineer to ensure that all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, as well as the fire protection systems are all in compliance with both local and various ordinances as appropriate. Demands, again, this is an estimate because until we are up and running, it's hard to have an exact figure. However, with the given systems, we are not expecting any significant with respect to stormwater management. Obviously, we will continue to keep the city engineer who we have corresponded to in the recent weeks, as well as others that may need based on the project demands. Traffic impacts, as I mentioned before, again, this is not open to the public, minimal number of employees, so we do not expect any issues or concerns with respect to this area. Are there any generic questions before I show the architectural plans?
I have a couple.
Sure.
My understanding is the building is quite large, but on your application, you're looking for only 5,000 square feet of growing?
Correct. Spent a lot of time doing research and working with our consultants, in addition to Steve, who is on the call tonight. And so, you know, the area that we have built out utilizes a large amount of the space, but at the same time, that 5,000 is your canopy space. And when you get into all the various regulations, that's where it can be deceptive as well. You have all this space, why aren't you growing more? Well, it has to also do with the height, you know, how much you can have, you know, stacked on tables, et cetera, things in that realm. So we're only looking to have, you know, 5,000 up to 5,000 from a canopy perspective.
And
thank you, Councilor Rivera.
Yes. For me, with regards to community support or working with the community, I know you mentioned American Legion, but there are two housing complexes right across from the canal right there, Lyman Terrace, which is I think managed by Community Builders right now, and St. Kobe Drive, that have a lot of kids in both of those communities, and there's also a skate park with a basketball court right across the canal. Are there any, I think in the future, is there any ideas of possibly partnering with some of the property managers there to probably educate or whatever it is on prevention or stuff like that? And then also across the street, there's a larger property. Right now, I'm losing my name, John Albin's building, right?
Open Square.
Open Square, yes. And I was wanting to see if you had any conversations with the owners over there, because they've actually been very vocal about odor nuisances and stuff like that.
So to answer your first question, I'm sorry, 1 second here. I think there's an echo or something. But to answer your first question with respect to open to other organizations for community support, absolutely. Being a retired military, that was my first, you know, place. I've been very fortunate and have been tried to give back. And obviously that's an area where I can make an instant connection, you know, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. But certainly, you know, certainly open to whatever makes sense. And obviously things that are close in the area are certainly, you know, a viable option. With respect to the Open Square property, yes, there have been conversations. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, it all centers around, you know, odor mitigation. And as stated in both our application as well as on the drawings, you know, we will comply with everything that is required from the town as well as the CCC's perspective.
Thank you.
Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Vivian. I was just curious, why Holyoke?
Well, it's funny you say that. Someone had shared, when we were looking, someone had shared a old footage of showing what the town was like back in the heyday when all the different paper mills were running, and there was a lot of history in the town, and there was just something about it that resonated. And honestly, that video kind of captured the essence. And then in watching it was one of the previous mayors who talked about, how to revitalize a town that had basically gone by the wayside because of, the industry had gone away. And the fact that he was younger and had truly a vision many, many years ago, again, there was just something that resonated with it. We have lots of towns in America that have gone by the wayside because things have moved offshore. And so when we looked at different towns in the area, between the video and some of the YouTube from the previous mayor, I apologize, I'm drawing a complete blank on his name.
Alex Morse?
Younger. And it was just something about it that resonated with me. If you haven't seen the video, it's special, for lack of a better word.
Thank you. And then just one more personal question, if you don't mind, because I didn't hear it at the beginning. What military branch are you from?
Oh, yeah. So I was one of those that needed a way to pay for school. So I was ROTC scholarship. So I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Transportation Corps, which then became logistics.
Nice.
So I have served on both active duty, and then I've had 5 deployments, most recently culminating back in April of 21, coming back from the Middle East. So I got to spend COVID in the Middle East.
Wow. Well, I'm a child of a career Army man, so I definitely appreciate your service, and I'm enjoying listening to
It's not
your
just the
presentation.
service person that serves. If you're a family member, they serve as well.
That's right.
All set?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm going to have a couple questions about site control and operations later on, but I guess I'd like to let you finish your overview first.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead, and you should be able to see the architectural drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is, again, where the building sits. And let's see. Not really hone in on. So here's the main level where you have the drive off the street. This is Lyman Street right here, and you come in. Obviously, this is the Sally Port. This is the main level. Okay. And then this is part of the build out on the second level. So as you can see, there is some undeveloped area, the attic. Currently, we have a renter. I believe he's also on the line, Mr. Reuter, Dave. And let's see, this is the front of the building. We've been there almost 2 years. And while we don't expect significant changes, we have tried to clean the place up, fix a lot of the broken windows, patch things. The front of the street obviously got completely redone. Cleaned up a lot of the side. Unfortunately, the back side is not ours, as much as I would love to get rid of that thing. Anyway, that just gives you an overview. And then, of course, you can get into the details and see, where all the site and the security and all is, if you have the actual drawings, which had been dropped off.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That doesn't look terribly unusual.
No, it's the same as all. Where's the Sally? Doesn't it use the Sally Port? Is that at the bottom?
Yeah. Did you point out to us where the Sally Port was?
Yes, ma'am. Right here is the entrance. This is all the building envelope. So it is all contained. There's no tunnel or anything. Here's the garage door, and then there's another garage door here.
Okay.
And then to come into the building, you have a door here.
Okay.
But the entire building envelope is right here.
Okay. So are you all set with your presentation at this point?
Yes, I know I went through it quickly.
That's-
I realize
yeah,
it's
that's
late,
fine.
but you have the drawings,
Yeah.
so I'd be more than glad to answer any questions from you. Or if it's a detailed architectural question, Steve is more than willing to chime in.
Okay, it being an independent building, it's pretty straightforward. The ones that get more complicated are when people are having to share sally ports and things like that. So I think this looks pretty straightforward from this point of view. The thing that is unusual about this application is the degree of response from one main abutter and secondarily, but not in writing to me, by the other abutter objecting to this particular development and its compatibility with the activities that are going on in terms of the services that are provided in the open square, and concerns around the financial and social impact when they're in the hospitality business and how that is going to be affected relative to this industry that has concerns with odor and the like. So I'm referencing an August 18th, 2021 letter that was sent by the property owner, actually by the attorney on behalf of the property owner. And so that's one of their concerns. And of course.
So that was a.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that concern was raised during that time period where the zoning was in question, but we are in compliance with our current zoning and with all the foot restrictions around the building envelope itself.
Yes, yes, and we are aware that the buffer issue, which was one of their objections, was resolved. And the other objections that they raised relative to things that are considered under special permits were the impact on the city and the neighborhood relative to the business that they offered there. So I'm just putting that into the public record because it is feedback from an abutter. It's unusual that we get any, and as you saw in the last one, we got a lot of positive. But in this case, the abutter did say they were in attendance at your outreach meeting and raised some of the concerns. So the other information that was provided to me is raising my question about the site control and who's actually going to be here in Holyoke running the business. Because you're in Delaware, and originally we had the name of another family member, and I've been given a copy of an arrest record that indicates the 109 Lyman Street as the address of the person. So it's created some confusion over that. And then there was the application that was pulled and then filed with different names. So we're really, and then in addition, the property was just for sale in October. So I'm just left feeling uncertain about site control and who is actually going to be running the business.
So I will start with, I'll try to answer all your questions. Hopefully I'll get them either in the right order or at least just answer them all. So was the property listed for sale? Yes. As you recall, the property was purchased in January of 21. We expected to be significantly further along, but due to the delay that occurred in the spring of that year, that caused all kinds of ripple effects. And then that issue was not resolved until literally 13 months later. During that time, obviously, we lost quite a bit of money. We continue to put, theoretically, we continue to put, the improvements in and continue to do what we could do. So, as far as, potentially selling it, we weren't sure with all the supply chain. We've had significant costs go up, as I'm sure everyone has seen with the economy. If we had built this project out literally a year ago, the cost would have been probably, and I'll be conservative, 20 to 30% cheaper. And again, it just really depends on what it is. Things such as the security cost and the general construction build with construction materials were almost 40% more when we got a second quote from the first quote, as we were going through this process. We toured several other facilities in other states to get an idea of, kind of what right would look like and what would make sense, because there are some uniquenesses with the building. The intent was to keep its general envelope and, not rip, tear the walls down and start all over, but, keep that aesthetic look on the outside of the classic brick building that is what a lot of, the older town of Holyoke is. During that time, obviously the construction costs, got ridiculous. So yes, I will admit, we entertained, because I wasn't sure we were going to get to this point, because we kept having delay after delay after delay. So we finally got here, and, all I can say is, see where the path, moves forward. As I mentioned, I've already retired from the military. We did have someone up there. That person is no longer, with the company. And so, we have two other people that we are currently entertaining. One has extensive work with the cannabis groups, so to speak. He's currently here in Maryland and lives probably about 2 hours south of us, and is retired from his civilian job. And he is one that we have spoken to extensively about possibly going up and setting up operations. Until we get to a point where we have an operation up, what I consider relocating. I don't want to get up there until I have enough underway that, it becomes a full-time job for me.
Okay, so.
So does that answer those couple of questions?
Yeah, somewhat. So what is your current status with the Cannabis Commission in terms of your potential licensing?
We submitted that application, hold on one second, I will tell you the exact date. That was formally submitted on October 26th, and I followed up with them on November 26th, which it's, currently in process.
Okay, so is the person who was associated with the project and is no longer associated with the project Ethan Gaz?
Yes, it was, and he has nothing to do with it anymore.
Okay, and so at this point, you're seeking an operator for the business?
I have someone, and that individual, it's all contingent on, how soon we're able to get started and what that path forward looks like. Okay. Because again, even if you gave me a permit, the first of the year, obviously lining up construction and lining up everything else, right, that just doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And then knowing my luck, it'll be a significant snowstorm, every 2 or 3 weeks, just given the cyclical nature of winters. You get a couple good winters, meaning lighter snow, and then you tend to get hit with a few heavier ones.
Right.
Last year wasn't really too big a deal.
Yeah, yeah. And you do have the renter, which is a business entity, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And he is completely separated. There is, there'd be security. So he has his complete entrance and exit and has nothing to do with the business. He's a longtime renter. He's been there. He can attest the fact of the improvements that we've made cleaning up the building versus what we inherited it as. And then, to get it to the point where it's at today.
Okay. Councilor Rivera, did you want to be recognized?
Yeah, real quick, just because I have a couple, not a couple questions, just like, so there's a difference between one of the projects that came earlier, right, and then this one, right, where it's like, they're both small, and they're both small staff, not huge staff. And it's just that here in Holyoke, we have a lot of issues with regards to finding employment and having people work. And the idea with us bringing in the cannabis industry was to try to get more jobs brought to Holyoke, right? So for me, my question is like, I know there's only like 4 positions there. So like what impact is that gonna do with regards to bringing employment to residents that are living in those wards, because where you're located is Ward 1, and it's one of the poorest communities in the city.
So our intent would be, that general manager, that operations supervisor is the one that I referenced, but all the other individuals working would be hired from the area. But as well, the entire build out, all the local businesses, where we tried to source as much as we could, either from Holyoke or from the neighboring towns, knowing that, there are probably some folks that might work in Springfield, but they might live in Holyoke and vice versa. Because as you know, those towns are very small, Chicopee, Holyoke, et cetera, and they're all literally within anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes of each other. And so that will also bring economic, benefits to the community as well.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Let me run through the conditions, which I imagine you heard with the other applicant, but just to be precise in this public hearing. And also, is there
Yes,
any
ma'am.
member of the public on Zoom? There's nobody here in the chambers with us, so that wishes to comment on this. Mr. Tourville?
Yes, this is David Tourville.
Welcome. We can hear you if you wish to comment on this special permit.
Yes, I'm the tenant. I've been there running a plumbing business for about 11 years now. And since Mr. and Mrs. Goss bought the building, I just got to say, it's completely different than it has been in the past. And I was, concerned about what was going to happen, and they did a lot of repairs, things that the previous landlord kind of just let go, and they fixed up an awful lot of places, and it looks so much nicer. And they've been taking care of us, and we've been really lucky to have them. They made the place more secure, and I just wanted to put my input in, and that, none of my employees, and I have 13 of them, they don't have a problem with, smelling any. I'm pretty sure there's a marijuana property that somebody I could probably throw a rock to from our building, and I don't smell anything from there. So I just I'm in favor of them putting a business there, and plus I know I'd be staying, and I got a bunch of employees. I moved to Holyoke, my business, from West Springfield, because it was a good area. Holyoke has a lot of older houses, and we go around, fix them all up, plumbing wise and heating wise.
Mhm.
And so, there was a lot of nice, places to move to, and a lot of those buildings are falling down. See it all over the place, or being torn down. And it certainly would be nice to see one fixed up and used for a business in Holyoke. And we would be happy to work alongside of them.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
all.
Thank you. And what is your address, just for the record, please?
109 Lyman Street.
Oh, I meant your personal.
Oh, I moved from West Springfield to Montgomery, which is
Okay.
right on the top of the mountain. Right next. My property is partially in Westfield.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, anything we haven't touched on?
I guess
Counselor
the only
Givner?
one question I have,
Hang on a sec.
is-
Counselor Rivera.
and I don't know if we've done it before, is because they haven't got a response from the Cannabis Commission.
Right, usually we have that.
Have we ever approved without having that?
Not to my recollection. We
'cause for me
usually
it's-
have the provisional thing from the Cannabis Commission before we, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we have to go under them.
Right.
So can we even move this forward, or do we have to table this until they have the actual cannabis
That was going to be
commission?
my question.
I think.
Great minds.
I think that's a good question
So
because.
what was communicated to me way back when, and I'm trying to draw my memory going back to spring of 21, was that depending on the timing of each, because obviously one can be delayed or hung up for various reasons, it could be approved contingent upon, meaning everything is done and you're just holding it to issue to me until the Massachusetts CCC comes through.
No, I understand that piece and thank you. It's just that I don't think we've ever done that. This would be the first time we do that. So that was the question.
Because at the end of the day, I can't do anything without them either.
I totally understand that.
You know, you do them in parallel, you apply for them together, and, you know, ideally in a perfect world, you literally get, you know, the Massachusetts one in a perfect world, I would have had it last week and I would have submitted it for this week. But, you know, with everything going on, and they're still completely remote. So they're not even back in their offices yet. You know, they still assure me that they're on that, you know, 90-day timeline.
So here's what I would say. Because we have not ever recommended a special permit to city council without that.
I think they'll vote on it.
No. What I would recommend is that we continue this public hearing. When you get the provisional license, you submit it with your application through the clerk and our administrative assistant, and we'll continue this to our next meeting, which is January 24th, and that should be within the 90-day window, so it wouldn't cause a potential delay. And again, all of our recommendations to the council are subject to vote.
Right.
But we have never recommended a special permit to the council without the provisional approval from the Cannabis Commission. So I think we would be more prudent I would seek a motion to continue to January 24th and keep the public hearing open at this point. And I mean, it's not for me to advise you as the applicant, but there are continued abutter concerns that exist.
I mean,
so, Councilor Givner?
Madam Chair, I would just like to clarify that beyond the abutter concerns, a very realistic fact is that if we send this to council, they're not going to vote for it because there's no Cannabis Control Commission permit. So it's actually in the applicant's best interest, I think, for us to table this while waiting. Otherwise, we'll be starting this all over again.
And the further point that I was going to offer is that if we do continue the public hearing, it is not going to require you to come in and do this presentation again.
Right.
It's already received, it's in the public hearing, all the comments and feedback are included and stay in whole. So it would be simply to receive that, which is a significant piece that we don't have. I do believe all the other open questions were answered in your responses that, I mean, we just got them today, but did everybody have a chance to look at them?
Yeah, and the presentation was thorough. So.
Yeah, so that part we're all current with. So from what I can see, that's where we're at. And then the only other remaining thing would be any, the standard special conditions that we would put on it and anything that remained open. So It's the discretion of the committee, so I think,
So I think what I'm hearing is you have everything you need. We've complied with everything as per local and state ordinances. And the only thing that we have yet to submit is the Massachusetts certificate. And once we have that, I will submit that through the proper channels. And if we have it by the January 24th, great. If not, hopefully no later than the February version. I only say that because from the time I submitted it, you're looking at the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays. So you theoretically lose about 3 weeks of time because a lot of people just take those weeks off, which is understandable.
right. So we'll continue to our first meeting, and then if it's not done, we'll just continue it to the next one, but we'll take it up as reasonably soon as we can.
Okay. And I would just ask that, I get put on the agenda, maybe first or second on the agenda.
Yeah, you'll be first next time.
Yes.
So, all
Yes.
right. Well, does anyone have any other questions?
No.
So motion to continue the public hearing until January 24th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
As the first item on the agenda.
Is there a
And thank you all for your time.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Can we take up 7?
Motion to take up item 7?
Second.
So this one.
If Stephanie's still here.
Can we do,
Well, just,
oh, right.
that's the last one.
Somebody's waiting, right?
Yeah.
On 7?
I don't know if Stephanie's still on Zoom.
I see Stephanie.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so there was a motion to take up 7, and that was seconded?
Yep.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, ordered that we create a food economy coalition, and there was attached form. Request that it is taken up at a meeting ASAP as the order is attached to potential grant funding. And we have Stephanie with us.
Hello.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for your patience
No problem.
and our bouncing around a bit. We try to be flexible with various committees and boards. But if we can give you the floor.
I can speak.
Councilor Maldonado Velez, do you want to give an overview?
Real quick, I just
Sure.
also, I thank you, Madam Chair. I know, so we took this up at public service, I believe, so this has been taken up before. And the recommendation from then is because it should be turned into an ordinance if we are going to form a coalition. So that's really where we're at right now. Yeah, I mean, it's a Holyoke Food Economy Coalition. Really, I know we're talking about food trucks, food deserts have been mentioned, just food insecurity. So all of those things are hopefully things that will be addressed with this coalition. As far as the grant part of it, I know, so Stephanie is the new Mass in Motion coordinator, taking maybe over Cynthia's role before, who was the lead person doing a lot of this. But I did invite her in case we do have any other questions. But yeah, I think it should be pretty straightforward, but she is here to answer any questions, or if there's anything else you want to include, Stephanie.
So what we have before us, Stephanie, is we have a copy of the bylaws from the Holyoke Food Economy Coalition.
Hello, yeah, we have a copy of the bylaws. Those were created by Cynthia when she didn't have Myro and the senior project manager at COVID.
Mm-hmm. So are those still what everybody would be operating under at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so all I'm trying to think about out loud is in moving forward with this, and we have to send it to legal for ordinance form. I'm just thinking out loud that the bylaws do not necessarily have to be in the ordinance, but we could leave it to legal as to how they would craft the ordinance to reference the organization that might be required for grants and the operation of the coalition. Can you let us know, is this membership and some of the items in here specific to meet some state and grant regs? Or maybe Counselor Maldonado, you know.
Actually, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Answer for that.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. The grant funding that Jose mentioned is through the MDAR, and it's a Food Policy Council grant. So it's like trying to get Food Policy Council started. And since we already had the Economy Coalition, we decided to go forward with that funding. But the grant is in line with the Massachusetts like food system like policy that they have, like their goals, if that can answer the question.
So it's a state program?
The MDAR is like it's a state entity, but the food coalition would be like Holyoke only.
Right, the local
Yeah.
branch, if you will.
That's Massachusetts Department of Agriculture and something else.
Okay.
Can I have?
So, Councilor Rivera?
So I guess I have a couple questions. Just I guess for me, it's just clear understanding, right, what's happening here. Not just for me, but for people that are probably watching on TV. So, Holyoke Food Economy Coalition, and then this there's a lot there. I'm not saying I'm against any of it. I just want to understand better of what the intention is. And then I think for me, the membership piece, there's a lot of people that are in positions of power on the membership, more than actual residents of Holyoke. And if there's a reason behind that, I guess for me, with regards to that, because there's only 2 residents on a possibility 15 member coalition. So I would like to see more residents on the coalition, a lot more residents. But I mean, I guess if you guys could speak to it, or whoever, with regards to that.
That's why I was kind of wondering if there were rules that were somehow impacting on this. You know, I don't know. Do you know why the membership is the way it is?
So this was drafted before my time, before I took over, and I totally agree that more community members with lived experience should be a part of it. So I can definitely redraft the bylaws and the membership to be more in line with having more community members on there.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, because I'm not literally trying to be an a-hole, right? I guess in a sense with regards to poking and prodding, but I know recently I've spoken to a couple farmers that work out of a specific space, and I don't want to drop any names because that's not my style right now, but they're up in arms right now and they're not feeling too supported. And I feel like this could be an opportunity for them to be able to speak up and be connected with people that have actual tools on their belts that they could actually help these residents that are trying to speak up. But yeah, that's why I brought it up more or less.
So I would note, just because I happened to see it as you were talking in the documents, it does say under section 5 that to the extent possible, membership of the coalition will proportionally represent Holyoke's population. And then it lists out a number of variables that would be considered. So maybe as long as that is sort of a driving principle, then maybe simply membership on the front could reference maybe section 5 or something. I don't know, but they seem to be a little bit conflicting.
I only brought it up because there's I see the Board of Health, op-ed, Holyoke Public Schools Director for Food, Food Justice Organization, they're all people with clout, you know what I mean, more or less. And if we're doing this for the people, I feel like there needs to be more people involved in it, so that way there's more people voice versus the voice of the department heads or the people that actually have power within the community already. The community leaders that are community stakeholders versus the residents that are our community stakeholders. But I don't have no issues with it. It's just that piece
Well,
right there.
but here's the thought. We can send this over to legal and ask them to put it in legal form to make this group part of our structure. And we can ask them in the doing of that to address, to the degree the ordinance is going to get that specific, which I'm not sure if it will. It could simply be addressed by amending the bylaws by the group. But we could send it over to legal and say that we do want to somehow address in the ordinance that we want it to be representative, because you would certainly, like, wouldn't there be, there would be farmers as one group, but there could be other groups of people in the food business other than farmers too that you would want represented.
They already
right?
have that kind of lined out. They have agricultural producers, local agricultural producers, supermarket, grocery
Oh,
stores.
so would they be the farmers?
They
Under DA?
DA,
Yeah?
it'd be DA,
Would that be a
or
farmer?
local
That
agricultural
could be a
producer.
farmer?
Yeah, it's a farmer. But I guess for me though, there's residents that don't identify themselves or that are not associated with. Like you could be a farmer in your backyard, but you're not associated with an actual entity.
Okay, so you just,
So you're a resident more or less
Yeah.
versus being associated with the actual
yeah, with
entity.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like with regards to that piece. But a lot of this other stuff, it makes sense. You know, it's good to have all these people in. It's just, I feel like we have 7 wards, right? There are people that live in each ward. We could have at least 5 residents that are on there to help
Well, right,
represent
and
more
as
of
people show up, it's usually 2 or 3 out of the
Right.
5 anyway.
Right. You usually, right.
As
Yeah.
schedules go.
Yeah, exactly. So if you got 2 residents that are on there, you're probably gonna get 1 maybe to show up. So it's like if you have more, it's more community buy-in, more community participation. I think it's a great movement. It's just like I would like for a lot of our stuff to be run or incorporate more residents so that we have more community engagement in the future. The more power we give to the people, the more they'll come out to vote, the more they'll come out to clean up the streets, to get involved in different initiatives that we're trying to do. So like for me, that's the intention with my mission on the council.
Yeah, and Councilor Maldonado Velez, if you know, were there any certain requirements for the grant? Because
Not that I'm so very similar to what Stephanie says. This is what Cynthia gave us. But I think sometimes like like for D, for example, the following profession shall have a representative in the coalition. It doesn't specify that the restaurant has to be like the restaurant owner. It can be the waiter working at the restaurant. The supermarket. It can be the bag boy or bag person. So I think going with that, not necessarily saying that these are not the categories we want, but I think with your point, interpreting the way you want, but also, I mean, make it so like those that are filling these positions are representative or are actually from Holyoke, instead of saying just 5 residents, because at the end it's like no fewer than 7, no more than 15. Like I don't know. That's just my train of thought right now, not to
get too prescriptive.
Yeah.
That makes sense though.
All right. So then would the committee want us to send it over to legal just to ask them to put it in legal form so that the entity can be official?
Yes.
Is that a motion?
Motion to entertain putting the bylaws for the Holyoke Food Economy Coalition into legal form.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Stephanie, thank you
So
for holding on so long.
And we will ask legal. We'll ask legal to give it back to us so we can look at it, and if it needs tweaking at all, we'll do it. But we're not asking legal to put the bylaws into ordinance. We're asking her to create an ordinance for the entity.
Bylaws.
Correct?
Yes.
What? Wait, I'm confused.
So.
Yeah.
So
We want to have in our ordinances that we have a food economy coalition
Right.
that operates under a set of bylaws, but I
Right.
don't think we're going to make the bylaws
No.
an ordinance.
No.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Right?
No. I know.
Okay, that's all I meant.
No. For me, I know there's similar. There's like the parking advisory committee, like whatever other coalitions or advisory committees look like in ordinances.
Yeah.
The bylaws are managed by the people that are on that committee.
Right. So just to say, to create language for ordinance. to create this
The
group.
coalition to be able to have the existence
Yeah.
under ordinance.
Yeah, Section 11 does say these bylaws may be amended by the members of
Right.
the coalition. So yeah, we wouldn't want this to be the ordinance language alone. Yeah.
Right, that could become very bureaucratic.
Yeah, no, my question with regards to the bylaws is to see if they can amend it now before you actually put it together. Because once you actually put it together, then the power lies within the people that are on the committee
Correct.
to change the rules. It's
Correct.
no longer,
Correct, and right now we're in
because
the
it's being
process,
developed,
and-
it's in the process of developing it, you can actually incorporate things that you want to for now. But once it's put together, the committee's the one that makes the decisions.
Right, and so between now and when legal gets back to us, there could be an updated, because everybody's new to them.
Right.
It could be revised.
They could
by
revise
the
it after the
time
fact
it
if they
comes,
wanted to,
the
yeah.
legal comes to us. Yeah. So all in favor of sending it to legal and it will come back to committee? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thanks for being so patient.
No problem.
Okay, can we go back to two?
Motion to open up the public hearing for item 2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. A public hearing that was continued, that the city council create an ordinance that creates food truck zones in the city with the goals of eliminating food deserts, managing the locations, and promoting various neighborhoods. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this or on Zoom? Seeing none, hearing none.
Motion to close the public hearing for item 2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So the public hearing is closed.
I guess
Aye.
motion to table, because I think we're still waiting on the legal form for it.
Well, so she's going to come back with legal form for us for an ordinance. We don't need a zone change.
Right.
So I think on the zoning aspect of it,
We're all set.
Complied with.
yeah,
Can be complied with, but then what?
we still need the order though,
It's to
because
elect the legal
it
form.
says ordinance.
Yeah, yeah.
And
we have to
legal
refile
already
that.
has it to put in legal form.
So we have to refile another order?
No, no, we're
Just
good.
have to table.
We're good. It's just how do we handle that we close the public hearing, we don't need, okay, so let's say it this way. Legal has determined that this order can be accomplished by an ordinance change, which they are crafting, and that it does not require a zone change. So we have closed our public hearing with no recommendation because one is not needed.
So it's motion to say that the order has been complied with on the conditions that legal is going to be drafting language.
That sounds reasonable to me. There a second?
Madam Chair,
Hey, there you go. Go ahead, Jeff. Do your thing.
if you report this out, the order is no longer in committee for the ordinance to be taken up
Okay.
when legal is ready.
Okay,
Motion
so
to table.
Attorney Bissonette, if you could weigh in, this is the first time I've had a situation where we didn't end up needing a zone change to do an ordinance change.
Mike's been here the whole night.
Poor guy.
I would have been asking him questions. I didn't even know.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry I didn't recognize you earlier. We've been going easy on you. We've been going easy on you.
Oh, you got a cut too? Oh, man.
Well, you've been busy.
So we close the public hearing and we don't need a zone change. So the question is, can we just say we close the public hearing and we're waiting for legal form for the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime,
You're not going to take any action by a public hearing.
you're breaking up.
You gotta be in the basement.
I'm probably breaking up like I have.
Give us a call.
So what did you make out of what he said?
None.
He said, yeah.
He said yes.
Well, he said yes.
So
To your-
we need to let planning board know, which we sort of informally told them, but we haven't formally communicated to them that they don't need to continue in the public hearing because no zoning change is required. And is there a particular way we should accomplish that?
No, it'll be reflected in your minutes, but certainly the chair can communicate with the planning
Just
director. Or
informally.
the chair of the planning
Okay.
board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Informally.
Sure.
Certainly,
All right.
thank you.
I think we already did that. So, okay, I think we're good then. So the public hearing is closed and we are waiting legal form for ordinance. No, we closed it, we're good, we're done, right?
Yeah.
We're
Because we
done.
just opened a public hearing, we closed.
Because we already have the order sitting in ordinance waiting for legal.
Oh, because we didn't open the order, we didn't take up the order, we opened a public hearing. Okay.
Correct, and then we closed the public hearing.
Okay.
So we're good.
Yeah, because the ordinance will stay in there, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
We're good. Okay.
Motion to take up item 8.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item 8, ordered that section 2-35 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Classification and Compensation Plans be amended to update the compensation amount for the Emergency Management Director position so that it is consistent with the negotiated annual salary for the revised duties and responsibilities changes. Substitute emergency management stipend with emergency management director's salary. Substitute $2,000 with $5,000 annual. Current amount of $2,000 reflects the stipend paid when the duties were performed by the fire chief. So this is an appendix in the classification and compensation plans, and it comes under stipends. I am not sure about why there's these various language changes in here.
Isn't it just the amount changing?
Yeah, that was my understanding. We're just changing 2,000 to 5,000 because now it's not part of the chief.
Oh, yeah, so we're changing titles, 1.
Well, we already did that. Remember when we did the job description?
Oh.
And so it's
just the
so it
amount.
used to be a real job, and then it became a very small stipend, and now it's sort of going into a little bit more of a job, but not. And the mayor did say something about the pension and $5,000
Yeah.
making it pension eligible. or something
5,000
like
makes
that.
it pension
But-
eligible. That's I think that's the difference now.
Yeah.
Because when it's
Salary, not a stipend, I guess.
I don't
know.
I don't know the verbiage or the reasoning behind it, but that's my understanding that it makes it because of how much you get paid, I guess. But
it's so.
So I guess for me it's what is it? So I mean, what do we vote? We just voting to say yes. I mean, I don't.
Well, if we, I guess my thing is, I'm looking at it as the $5,000. We can't change a stipend into a salary without putting it into the salary scale, which it isn't a salary.
It would
it's
still be a stipend. It would still be a stipend.
It's a stipend.
Yeah.
So we can change it to 5,000, and I mean, they can call it whatever they want for the pension.
Well, they're not changing the name of it, they're just changing the amount.
Right.
The stipend to salary.
Yeah, so I don't know what that means, but Attorney Bissonette, is there a significance to this language? Because we can't really make a stipend into a salary, can we? On a
I don't know.
attachment in the salary scale?
I just hate voting for things when I don't really understand.
It's an attachment with
I swear to
stipends.
God, like why can't somebody just?
We're a
be here
little
and
bit
explain it?
lost here
Like,
because we can't put it in the scale.
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't. I think you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah.
Oh, terribly sorry.
Sorry.
Some people say I work best that way. The question here as to the pensions, state law had changed a little while ago that any job now to qualify as pension eligible, including elected positions, must receive at least $5,000 a year in salary. So I think that's the basis. That's the basis for the use of that word.
Well, right, and so I think that's a.
So if we change it to salary, it has to be 5,000. But if we don't change it to salary, it can be under 5,000. That's what it sounds like.
Well, The thing is, it's like broken up. We have salary scales for certain of the jobs, and then we have stipends, and then we have ranges for the elected officials that aren't on a scale. But I guess we can just change it to $5,000 annual and just put salary in parentheses, or the mayor can say it's a salary because he's the one determining if it's pension or not, right? Not us. Can we just add it to the sheet? Will we be okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll entertain a
This will
motion.
correct the ordinance to reflect your current budget.
Right, right. So I'll entertain a motion that we change the stipend from 2,000 to 5,000 and let somebody else worry about the words.
Motion to change the stipend from 2,000 to 5,000.
I mean, assuming everybody thinks that's a reasonable thing to do.
Well, I don't understand.
We'll take another vote at full council anyways.
Right.
Well, we're just changing the language in here that says this is.
We're changing it from a $2,000 stipend to 5,000.
But that already happened. Didn't that already happen?
That's what I figured.
So
That's what.
it's when we did the job update, the stipend was still 2,000.
But didn't it go to finance first? And they talked about this.
But see, they can't do this. We have to do this. I think they approved the money in the budget with the supplemental or something, but we have to do this for the pay to be legal.
Okay. Just in the ordinance.
I think it was done a little bit out of order, but this makes everything line up. It's in the budget, now it's in the language properly.
Okay.
So we have a motion from Councilor Rivera. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so
Motion to take up item
9. We need to leave that on the table because we didn't hear back yet.
Which one?
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, Jeffrey?
I just heard back from Don about 10 minutes ago.
Oh,
He
perfect.
said it's all set.
Oh, okay, you're right.
Motion to take up item 9.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. That a handicap sign be placed in front of 72 Hampshire Street for Lorraine Hernandez Campos, placard number PL 1550887. And I understand from our able administrative assistant that our disabilities commissioner, Don Welch, has just hot off the press sent in the recommendation from the Disabilities Commission that we should approve this. Right, Jeffrey?
That is correct, and I've already sent the request to Chris for the measurements.
Okay, thank you.
So motion to approve this will depending on getting the measurements from Chris at the next full council meeting.
Sure.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't like to hold these up, you know.
Yeah.
As soon as we get them, I like to move them because people need them.
Motion to take up item 10.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Ordered that in an effort to streamline services to residents, create language that eliminates ordinance to review and for city council to vote on installation removal of handicap signs for residents with required residential and handicap parking qualifications. I only added this on because in reviewing things with Jeffrey, we noted, and he reminded me that it had been reviewed in public safety.
Yep.
And so I thought we could take.
Yeah, we had
and-
a public, not a public hearing, but they elaborated on.
Yeah.
On why it has to come through ordinance.
Yeah, and so if you felt it was adequately covered in that venue, then we could consider it
So
complied with.
What?
If you
Yeah. What I learned that day is the way we have it set up. It has to come to ordinance. I think we could set it up in a way where we don't. No, we have to. We have to because we're technically.
We'd have to change the ordinance for it
yeah.
to not have to come here.
Because
Right,
we have the only way to identify a space, a public space, because what we're doing is we're not necessarily making that a handicap space. What we're legally doing is something different. I don't know exactly the terminology, but we're holding a space. I don't know the terminology, but it's
still a public space. It's just a designated handicap.
Right,
but
it's not a regular.
It's not
public
even like
space.
technically designated handicap. We're just designating it handicapped as a city. Like, there is no rule to actually be able to give someone a handicap space. We're just designating this space as a space that's being held, and then we're putting a handicap sign on it. That's why we can't assign a specific number to it.
That was the state.
This doesn't ask about assigning numbers. This just basically says if someone comes
Right.
and asks for a handicap.
But it has to still go through us.
But you wanted to make it simpler.
Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
make it so that
So they don't have to come to
somebody
us.
goes, to get the form and they fill it out and they go to Don and he says, yes, you can do it.
That they
Then
could
Chris
have
can just go and do the measurements.
Right,
Like,
but from
we
what
can
I
stay
learned
out of
that day, according to Dom, is that the only people that can set aside a space, a public space,
Yeah.
is by ordinance. That's the only way you can do it.
I see.
It's by ordinance. So even if the commission went together and they wanted to decide and do it on their own, they would still need to come to us so that we can identify that space by ordinance.
Very
That
good.
is-
Essentially, what we're doing is we're just doing what they say.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Because each space that is considered handicap is written in our ordinance. Like each one has like a table. So like
Yep.
this one is gonna have its own table. The one on High Street is gonna have it. Like there's how many parking handicaps? Each one has its own table in the ordinance. I'm wondering if there's a way, and I don't know what the law is around it, where if there's a way like where the Disabilities Commission or the city engineer holds on to the list of handicap spaces, and our ordinance is written in a way that's like we refer to that list, or does it have to be written into ordinance language for those spaces? Do you get what I'm saying?
I do get what you're saying, but it's sort of on request and as needed. So if somebody moves, they got it, but now they need it somewhere else. But then they don't need it where it is, so you got to make sure it gets undone. Otherwise, you have no parking.
So like the thing
They
that
end up all taken.
So using
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so even using that example, it will be, I mean, I feel like even then it will still be simple, because I know we've had moments where there's handicap spaces that are up for months after the person has left because there's no actual sort of like, I don't know, simpler
no
way to
system,
say,
yeah.
hey, is no longer needed or anything, or no check-in system that's actually put in by the city engineer or whatever department we decide it goes under. So it's like, I'm just using this as an example. Like,
So I kind of get what you're
So
saying. You're saying like,
that's the second mechanism.
shouldn't somebody sort of look at them every year to make sure
Yeah.
they're still needed?
so in our ordinance language,
Yeah.
it goes like, so I don't know where exactly in our ordinances each of the handicap spaces are actually like tabled
Really
out,
sit? I
but
don't know.
can it be under that where it says we refer? Thank you, Jeffrey. So it's Schedule 1 parking. So it's the
Oh.
thing where we put like, instead of having every time we have to change this table or add something, it has to go into ordinance, something where it's like this table is held at the engineer's office and
Yeah, but
our
see,
ordinance
he doesn't have
references
the
to
authority
that.
to change the
No,
ordinance.
gotcha.
That's the
No. So
problem.
like, and I guess that's my
that's the piece
I'm
that
trying to get to.
Nobody has the authority to be. They can identify and do everything they're doing now, but they don't have the actual authority to say
We
that
have
this
to do
spot.
the last step.
And then what I learned too is that like technically it's like there are no spaces like identified handicap. We have to like set it to the side and then we identify a handicap. Like so even on High Street, if there's a meter, they were speaking about trying to like get a handicap space on High Street. And what Dom said was that if you have a handicap placard, you just put it up and you don't have to pay the meter.
Right. So
You don't have to
need a
pay.
space.
Technically, you
don't need a space.
Yeah. You don't need a space on High Street. You
That's
just
like part of our education campaign.
that's technically that's why I held it that day. You know what I mean? So that he could educate me, but at the same time it's on YouTube. Anybody can go ahead and watch it.
Right. And then it was sort of like, since he already came in and did that, do we need him to come in here and
No.
do this? Or can we call it complied with?
So it all depends on what the goals are for
Right.
for
Well, it
Councilor
sounds-
Givner.
It sounds to me like the wording here is not what's needed to make, to create the change that I'm looking for.
Right.
So it takes the idea is the same, but if the words are wrong, it's like
So-
it can't get to where we need it to be because it's not.
So if the goal is
We can't streamline it like
right,
this.
if there's a
we can't
goal,
just be like, okay, now we're just gonna not look at these anymore.
Right.
They're just going to go another.
If there's a goal, if the goal is to see what the process is and how they are pretty much inventorying our handicap spaces, right? Then it would be a different order, I think.
No, the goal is to not ever look at that ever.
Then you want to be on a different.
Because I mean, to the point that you guys were saying with like, we have handicap spaces, people move, people pass away, like, and you don't know until the next person moves in, and they're like, "Yo,
But that's okay,
nobody even has this
because then-
space anymore." But by then, it's already like 8 months, a
And they
year,
can't
2
figure it
years.
It's often sometimes it's longer. I mean, we don't live in a system where people move to a community and come to City Hall and say, "Hey, I live here now," and leave a community and say, "Hey, I've left here." If we did that, then what we're talking about would work. But the U.S. system is not set up like that. We can come and go as we please as long as we can, prove our address, get a driver's license.
Right.
We don't have to state that we've arrived in a city or that we've left, and so that makes it hard to track things.
Right, but even if, say, every year you sent a letter out and say, "Do you still need a handicap space?" There's no guarantee that somebody's going to answer you back.
But I think a
And then
homeowner who has
you
spaces
couldn't-
in front of their house and they need the spaces to park, they might say, "Oh, this is how you have that handicap space taken out." Because people don't
know how.
always think
Right.
that they should call and ask about it, or maybe they think it's supposed to be there. They don't
Right.
realize it was specifically put in because of
Right.
someone's request. you know?
Yeah, that does happen, and that's actually a good thing. We as ward counselors can do is reach out to our constituents and say,
"Hey, do you,
call me if," kind of thing, right?
So
That can be one of our wards.
what would you want to do?
It's one of the many.
There you go.
What would you want to do with regards to this order?
Yeah.
I guess we can just have it complied with because, we need a different order to do something else.
Motion that item 10 is complied with.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Hey, it's only 9:30.
Bye.
Oh, wait, is there a second?
He did. He seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good
That's
night.
not too bad.
That's good.